This is Empire Sports Alliance, unfiltered. No fluff, no filters, just the real side of sports. We're talking athletes, coaches, agents, doctors, executives, the people behind the scenes who actually move the needle. From building careers to surviving the grind to winning off the field. This is where real conversations collide.
Welcome to another episode of Empire Sports Alliance Unfiltered. I'm Ronnie. I'm the wealth guy. My co-host Eric.
Hey everyone, Eric, sports medicine concierge service for you.
And today we got Kam Arnold, linebacker with the Kansas City Chiefs. Thanks for joining us, Kam.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. So how we normally do it, we just obviously want to make sure the audience kind of gets an understanding in terms of what it means to be a professional football player and kind of the journey that leads up to that point. And I mean, obviously there's a lot goes into it, and we had several, folks on playing different positions and all that stuff. So we're certainly, excited to hear about your journey. And if you wouldn't mind, I'll just, hand it over to you and you get us started.
Yeah. So I'm from Detroit, Michigan, really West Bloomfield, Michigan. I grew up West Bloomfield. It's like 30 minutes outside Detroit. I started playing football when I was around 7 years old, youth football. And, from there, it was pretty obvious that, I had a lot of talent early on as a young kid. And, my parents, they made sure that they got me in, training and stuff, and, just making sure that I stay focused and that I handle my business in school, and, just told me that, if you want to, play sports for a long time and, do this, you have to handle your business in the classroom as well. And, that helped me a lot, growing up as a young kid. And,
Kam, so basically no sports unless you hit your grades. Like you're doing well in the classroom, otherwise no sports.
Yeah, no, both my parents, they were pretty adamant about, making sure that I was always doing my homework.
Yeah.
I was reading books and stuff, and just handling that business first and foremost. Cause, they're telling me that, if you want to, earn a scholarship one day, you gotta have the grades to, ultimately, be able to take advantage of that scholarship. So, they instilled that in me pretty young. So I always, took my schoolwork really serious as a young kid. But yeah, so, fast forward from there.
Hold on a sec. So that's amazing that they did that. That's very cool. But were you football specific or did you do multiple sports?
No, I played multiple sports, especially like when I was really young. I played, football, baseball, basketball. I ran track. But yeah, I was always like a multi-sport athlete. And then middle school, I played all those same sports. It was when I got to high school is when I narrowed it down to football, baseball. And then like I ran like indoor track on the side during the winter just to, make sure my speed was, kept intact. But
and you did that throughout high school, doing multiple?
Yeah.
That's good. What position baseball did you do?
I played outfield. I played center, right, and left, all three.
Okay.
But I love baseball too. I actually was, thinking about playing baseball in college when I was in high school, just because, I was pretty good at that as well, and I got some notice, or got some looks from schools and stuff, and I was getting a little bit of recruitment there. Some schools were offering to let me do both football and baseball for college, but my heart was always with football. Like whenever I was, just thinking about, what I could do long term and what I could see myself, just putting in the work consistently and, just giving it my all, like long term, I was like, football has the key to my heart. Like football is, the one sport that, I feel the most, alive, and I can just let loose, and, I just love playing it the most. So, that's when I made the decision of my senior year of, I want to go play football in college. And in high school, I started out, I was really small in high school. Like my freshman year, I was like 5'8", 150, 160 in that range. And I was just like I was a corner, I was a receiver, like all throughout my high school career. I didn't really gain a lot of muscle, and like grow into my body until like, my senior year, like late my senior year. And when I was getting recruited throughout high school, I was mostly getting recruited as a corner or a safety, like just a defensive back.
I mean,
And
at that point, you're like 80 pounds too light to play linebacker, right? I mean,
yeah, I was a little guy, but I my senior year, I started to get into my diet a little bit more and just getting my protein intake up some more, and like my body, like I was putting on muscle pretty easy and stuff.
okay.
And
Would you like to, would you mind to elaborate? Because I think that sometimes in our discussions gets forgotten in terms of the importance of like nutrition, like, especially again, as you're growing as a young adult, right?
yeah,
So how did that regimen look like? Who gave you that, those tips, or who did you work with in order to really understand of like, hey, proper nutrition for me as an athlete is X?
honestly, I figured it out myself.
Awesome.
I was just doing my own research. I was just like, figuring out, how I could optimize my performance with, my nutrition and stuff. And I was doing research on how important it is, just to make sure that, you're fueling your body properly and, making sure you're putting the right things in your body. And, I got with my mom and I was like, Mom, I want to, eat a little bit cleaner than, how I've been eating. And, I need to, if I want to, play this game for a long time and, go about it like in a professional way, I got to change some things, and I need your help. You know what I mean? So she helped me a lot, just, meal prepping and helping me with that in high school. That helped
It,
me a lot.
is mom a good cook?
Oh yeah, she's the best cook.
What's the best thing she makes?
I'm sure it's
Uh,
super healthy.
it's a lot of things. I would probably say, I I would say like her spaghetti or her chili, just because like growing up, that always just reminds me of when I was a kid. She used to like those were like her staple meals. When I was a kid, so those always like just give me great memories, especially like when she makes it and stuff. So yeah, I would say either her spaghetti or her chili and stuff. But yeah, she can make anything.
So I do have a question about the nutrition side. And actually, I'm not sure about college, but I know in the NFL, MLB, NBA, they're very strict on NSF sport certified supplements. So are you the kind of guy where it's like, look, I found the good stuff. I know they're not tainted, and even though they don't have that NSF sport on it, do you still take them, or have you shifted and you're only working with NSF sport certified stuff?
Nah, everything that I take and put in my body is NSF
Okay.
sports certified. Because the NFL, like you get drug tested, for those third party, substance and everything, and you don't want to be that guy, that has something come up. So yeah, I mean everything that I take, I make sure it's NSF
Okay.
sports. Yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
so
so you were talking about getting in shape, again, nutrition in high school. Sorry, interrupted you
yeah,
there, but I
yeah,
was just
so
interested.
yeah, once I started, taking that seriously and doing that, I started to see, changes in my body and, growth and a lot of muscle being put on. And, like my senior year, that's when I, started to really just see, the changes and everything. And, with my recruitment process in high school, I received a lot of offers from, like Mac schools, Temple offer, Air Force, Harvard, Yale. I had a couple of other Ivy League schools, and then I had Iowa State. But my heart was always in playing at the highest level, and I knew that I had the ability to. And the thing is with those schools, like I was getting recruited like by Michigan State, Syracuse, Missouri, but they were always in question of like, you know, is this like, what is this kid gonna, grow into like position wise? Like, cause they saw like that I still had a lot of room to like grow in terms of my body and just, I wasn't, fully grown into that. And, they had questions of that. And they were bringing up, things like, yeah, you might be a linebacker. And at the time, I wasn't really seeing the vision.
Wait,
So
how big were you at that point though? Like senior year, how much muscle did you put on? And height wise, And what was your GPA at also that Harvard, Yale is looking at you?
Mhm.
And then thirdly, my family's from Flint. Both my parents went to Michigan State. So go
Okay.
Spartans.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, my senior year, I got up to like 195, like 200 in that range, and I was like 6 feet, and they were just looking at me like you still got more room to grow, like you got pretty broad shoulders, and they could just tell that I still had just more room to put on more muscle, more mass and stuff. And my GPA was 3.7 at high school. I went to a private Catholic high school, and it was like a college preparatory school. So yeah, I had pretty good GPA right there, and that brought a lot of attention from the Ivy League schools, just
Nice.
to recruit me a little bit. But
Like,
yeah, I didn't really the Ivy League schools were cool, just to, say I had those offers, but I knew in my heart I always wanted to play like, in Power Four, like ACC, Big Ten, schools like that. So yeah, with the schools that were showing interest in me, they just felt like I had more room to grow, and they were bringing up linebacker, but I wasn't seeing the vision. I wasn't denying it, but they could tell like I kind of was left back, and
you
ultimately
were
they.
recruited as a safety, right? Is that right?
Yeah, at Boston College I was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I think they always had it in the back of their minds, like, yeah, eventually we're gonna move this kid to linebacker. I
Yeah.
just, I didn't know that, but yeah. So Boston College, they came on the scene like late in my recruitment. Like, so I didn't sign. There's like two signing days in high school. There's an early signing day and a second later signing day. And everybody for football usually signs on the early signing day. It's like December 18th. And I was like, I don't really have the offers that I want. Like, I don't really want to go to any of the schools that, offer me. And I was just like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm just gonna, wait it out. And I didn't sign that first signing day. Then I got a text from the head coach, Boston College, Jeff Hafley at the time, and it was like a week or two later, and he was saying that he loved my film, and they were really interested in me and wanted to get me out for a visit, just to see me and everything. So that was a blessing, and it was amazing. I mean, they flew me out for official, and I just, once they offered me, I committed on the spot, and it was a done deal. So yeah, I signed with Boston College. Went in as a freshman. My freshman year, played safety. I saw some
Real
early
quick, man,
playing
how did
time.
that come about? So you just all of a sudden randomly received a text from the head coach? Like,
Yeah,
I
so
mean, obviously, your film is out there, but was there any connection through your high school, like, coaches or any other strings that were being pulled that,
I honestly don't. There wasn't any connection. I mean, to this day, like nobody told me there was any connection or that they
Okay.
put a word in for me. So yeah, so it was like one evening I was doing indoor track practice in December, and I remember like looking at my phone after practice, and I seen a text from Jeff Hapley, and he was like, "Yeah, I just got hired here as the head coach, and I like your film and everything." I'm like, whoa,
Is
like
he pulling a
I'm
prank? I
shocked.
mean, did you know
Yeah,
the number?
I was shocked, and I was like, "Is this real?" Like, you know what I mean? So I started texting him back, and he was texting me, and we got on the phone call. I was like, "Okay," like, so I was pretty excited about that. But yeah, so went to Boston College my freshman year. It was COVID year, 2012, so it was a little crazy, just with how everything was going with the protocols and stuff. I having to wear masks all the time.
How did that go? Can you go a little bit in detail? I always thought it was nuts, but,
Yeah, no,
how did
that was it wasn't a normal college experience, like, to start out to begin with. Like, it was like really strict. You couldn't, especially like with football, like, cause we were getting tested weekly and everything. And it was really important that like you didn't, be around, big groups of people without a mask on and stuff, and, have a chance of getting positive, cause you wouldn't be able to play in the game. So yeah, that whole experience was crazy.
isn't that kinda hard, though, staying away in a team sport from other people?
Yeah, surprisingly though, our team, like, nobody really got COVID my freshman year. Like,
Okay.
we were pretty good with it. So, but yeah, that was crazy. It was a hard time just because that was my first time being, far away from home. I'm in Boston, and I'm from Michigan, so it was a
Yeah.
little distance. And plus, my family, they couldn't come out to the games because we couldn't have anybody in the stands. So that was weird. But
Yeah.
ultimately, got through freshman year. I got to see some playing time too. Just got some experience in some of the games, made some plays, and then ultimately after my freshman year, the coaches brought me in their office, and they basically told me they're like, hey, we want to move you to linebacker. We see excel in the linebacker position with your speed and athleticism, and
I
you have
I'm assuming you're
growing.
playing outside? Would you play,
No,
will
I
stand?
play inside.
Inside? Okay.
Yeah, at the time they put me at will, but now I'm Mike linebacker. But
Oh,
yeah, so
really? So you're middle linebacker. I'm just imagining with your speed and obviously with the experience from playing DB. Okay,
yeah,
that's great. So
yeah,
you really grew into this. I mean,
yeah.
what size are you? Where are you at now?
6'1", 230 right now. So yeah, so yeah, grew into the position, but yeah. So after that meeting, I thought about it. And I was like, you know what, like maybe this is what I was supposed to do, what I'm called to do and play linebacker because I was getting teams were telling me that in high school and I wasn't seeing it then, but maybe it's time I make the switch and just embrace it. And so yeah, that's exactly what I did. And I went on to earn a starting job at linebacker and started for 4 years at Boston College. And yeah, I mean that was a great experience. Had a lot of ups and downs, team wise. Didn't always have the wins that we wanted every year, but I just having that experience playing in stadiums like against teams like Clemson and just playing away and all that, like that was a great experience. I love just the atmosphere. I love competing, and it just always reminded me of why I chose to play football is just to be in this atmosphere, this environment, and compete and just also just play with the guys next to me that have been practicing hard, working,
Yeah.
doing all the workouts, everything leading up to those games. So that was a great experience.
Wait,
But yeah, so
how, sorry, how difficult was it switching and learning a whole new position? And which one do you like doing better? If you could be either position with the Chiefs, for example, which one would you choose?
yeah, the transition at first, I had a lot of growing pains, just 'cause something I never did before, not really a position I ever really studied before. So I had to really hone in on being a student of the game and just watching other linebackers like professionally and seeing how they play the game and just really learning how to play the linebacker position because it's a way that you have to play the position. And I learned that, learned and grew a lot, and developed a lot. And now it's like when, people ask me that question of, which one, linebacker or DB, is linebacker night and day, like all day, every day, I'm choosing linebacker just because, like after, playing the position for so long and, learning about it and just how, versatile linebackers have to be like, it's not like, back in the day when, it was just like linebackers had to be big, behemoths and stop the run and do all that. Like, nah, the game's changed, the game's evolved and like, you have to be able to play in space, you got to be able to defend the pass, defend the run, everything. And it's like, you're so versatile, you're a leader on the defense. And I love being a leader. I love, being, vocal and getting people lined up, running the defense and, having the green dot in my helmet and just, telling everybody to call like that. I love that. You know what I mean?
I wa
So
I was just gonna say, I mean, you're the captain of the defense, right? You got the green dot, you're the mic, so you basically
yeah,
have to read you have to kind of call out the plays from a defensive perspective. In terms of,
yeah.
like, studying the film, like, I mean, I'm sure that wasn't an easy transition. When you say you looked at some of the pros and the way they played, any particular guys that you were like, that stick out, were like, "Hey," that kind of resonated with you? Any particular ones that you followed?
Yeah, I was at the time I was, just trying to find the guys that were playing the game at a high level at the time. So I was watching like Fred Warner, Dre
Oh,
Greenlaw. I was watching Roquan Smith. I was watching Patrick Queens and stuff like that. Just guys that were having a lot of success and just playing really well at the
Yeah.
time. So I was watching their film, just seeing what they did well and just kind of seeing how I could add things that they do into my game and stuff. And so I still watch, guys in the league. to this day, just always
That I
looking
mean,
at.
that never stops, right? I mean, it's like,
No, yeah,
it's like in my core business, and same thing with Eric, if I have no problem with stealing good ideas in terms of other professionals doing it well. I'm sure that's the
yeah.
same for you, right?
No, right. I mean, I think the name of the game is just like, find what works for you. Try
Yeah,
to, see what the guys that are doing it at a high level are doing. And you don't gotta steal everything that they're doing, but, like,
sure.
some of the stuff, like, it's like, okay, I could add that to my game, or, I like the way he, plays that or how he goes about that. Like, I'm gonna try and, work that into mine and, just figure out, what works for you and how your play style and stuff. So, yeah, but yeah, no, it's nonstop. Like, every year it's like, you just try to, find what the guys that are getting highlighted and guys that are having the most success, like, just figure out, what they're doing and how they, were able to, have that success, and, just try to add that to your game. But yeah, so getting back to my college story. So my last year, um, I was a fifth year senior. So last year I was just like, this is the year, like, I gotta, you know, do everything I can to put myself in the best position to, go to the NFL, get drafted and everything. So yeah, so I started out, having a great year. My last year, just just showing why I should, be drafted and all that. And unfortunately, I had a season-ending injury 7 games in my senior year. I had a brachial plexus nerve damage injury in my left shoulder, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, it took me out for the rest of the season. I
How did
couldn't.
that happen?
It was just over time, like, I had been getting singers that whole season, and it was kind of just it built up, and
Uh,
you know it was crazy because the last play, like, when it like just gave out, I forced a fumble. We were playing Virginia Tech. I forced a fumble,
oh,
and my own teammate was coming in to try to clean it up and get another hit on the guy that was carrying the ball. He ended up hitting me and like, hit me on the side, and like my head like flashed whiplashed like this way, and my whole like left side of my body was just like numb and stuff. Like, I couldn't really like move anything, move my arm. So
oh shit, that's
that was,
scary.
yeah, that was traumatizing, scary time. Just
Those
but
are those are nasty injuries. I mean, I've treated a number of those, and there's a lot you could do for it, obviously, treatment wise. But yeah, it takes a little time, obviously.
yeah, yeah. The bad thing was, nerves, they take a while to heal, and you kind of just have to, just let it run its course, and you can't really just rush the process or try to get out there too fast because ultimately I was like, I was begging or I was asking the doctors and everything. I was like, so like, when can I play? Like, I want to finish out the season. Like, I got, the draft and all that coming up in April. Like, I just want to, be able to, showcase, why I should be in the NFL. And they were telling me, they're like, look, like, you're not going to be able to come back for the season. Like, I would take that out of your mind. Like,
And that was your
but they're
senior
like,
year, right?
yeah, that was my
Was your
last
last
year,
year?
my senior year.
Mhm.
So they're like, but they're like, you have a good chance of, making a recovery by the time your pro day comes around, to be able to, showcase, your athletic traits and everything. So I was just like,
Yeah,
okay, well, so that time, that was really challenging for me. That was adversity that,
yeah.
I didn't see coming and I didn't expect to go through. But ultimately it helped, make me, a better person, just, within. Like, I got in touch with, my faith, just, getting in the Bible, reading the Bible consistently, and just, understanding that, adversity is a part of life. And, honestly, it's about, how you respond. You know what I mean? So I made it a point to just, oh, go ahead.
Was gonna say, sorry, did you, obviously I'm on the medical side, so this is
Yeah.
what I do. So I'm curious if you put all your faith and trust and belief in the college training staff and did what they said, or were you doing research, going out, finding guys like me with higher end, equipment and modalities to accelerate the process in different ways to treat it and think outside the box at all?
Yeah, so I did everything in terms of physical therapy at my school. I did go get a second opinion, at the Patriots training center, but they were telling me, the exact same thing in terms of when they looked at, my MRI, a CAT scan and everything. And, I leaned into, just sticking with the program that my school had, designed for me. And yeah, I did my physical therapy there, in the morning and then the afternoon. And then, every day I was just continuing to, work on, my strengthening my arm, like doing exercises for it. I was using the BFR machine, just doing like, low weight, but like high reps with like shoulder exercises and everything. Just trying to,
Hold on. I've brought up BFR a number of times because I do a lot with the BFR. I think it's amazing and I think it's overlooked a number of times. And just so
Can you
you know,
explain real quick? BFR
yeah,
stands for Eric.
BFR is blood flow
Yeah.
restrictions. It occludes the blood going to your arm, for example, and tricks the body. But technically, if you were to do BFR for 2 weeks, it's equivalent to doing 2 months of strength training in the gym. So you're creating the growth hormone at a much greater level and you're getting so much more of it because you're staying in the burn for that 8 to 10 minute range as opposed to short spurts when you lift weights. And so it's really good with coming out of an injury like yours.
For recovery?
Yeah, recovery wise, but then I even add PEMF to it, which is pulsed electromagnetic field. So that technically I could heal a fracture in a third of the time and get rid of pain and inflammation in half the time. But you put the loop on the shoulder while you're doing the BFR, and now you're hitting the nerves, going to a number of other structures. And they're just little hacks that you could do to accelerate it. So it's cool hearing that you're utilizing some of that stuff to help you.
So you're saying electroshock therapy is what I'm hearing, right?
Hey, Nikola Tesla developed it. That's how far back it goes.
Okay.
When
High
Terrell
voltage.
Owens came back from his injury and then scored and did all that stuff, it was all from the machine I have actually. The owner of the company used to go and help him. Shaq used to fly him around and
Oh.
treat him privately. And that's when I fly out. Like right now, I'm taking care of a Rockies player. I fly out once a month. I bring the PEMF with me. I bring the BFR, and I'm doing all this stuff with these guys because they don't necessarily get it through the training staff. So you got to do it other ways. So sorry,
So-
go on.
No worries, but Cam, so again, this is your last year, right? You basically played 4, years of college. Now this is your last year. Obviously, I mean, I would imagine that didn't necessarily help your draft stock, right? Going up to that, even though you were going to be ready for the pro day, et cetera. Did that go through your mind when you were talking about adversity as well?
Yeah. Yeah. So I was always thinking about that, just like, how is this going to affect me, when the draft comes around. But ultimately, I had to surrender the outcome and, kind of just put it in God's hands. And, I just say, regardless of what happens, I'm just going to do everything that, is in my control and in my power to, be ready to, showcase my abilities and, showcase where I belong in the field. So I would just, attack my, physical therapy and, my pro day training, like, and just, attack it and give it my all and, treat my pro day like it's a Super Bowl. So,
Yeah.
after the season, I ended up going to Florida at Balmeritos to, do my pro day training and continue my physical therapy. So yeah, I was just training there for a couple months leading up to my pro day. And, I remember like, my pro day getting there and, I was just like in my mind, like I was just like, it's time. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's time to, show teams why I belong and, show them that that I'm here and I'm healthy and I'm ready to go. And that I ended up having a great pro day. I ran, 4.5 in the 40, jumped 39 vertical, just, put up some really great numbers as a linebacker and then had good position work drills and I opened up a lot of eyes and my agent told me that, a lot of scouts are, talking about you and stuff. So that was good. And then after that, I went home, just continued training. I got to do a couple local days, the Patriots and the Lions, just because my school, Boston College, was in Massachusetts, and then
Yeah.
Lions, I'm from Detroit. So got to do those local days. Agent said that I got some good feedback from those teams as well. But yeah, so after that, it was like, everything's in God's hands. Like I did everything on my part, and the outcome will be the outcome. You know what I mean? So
For those
going
pro
up into
days with the pads and the lines and stuff, like how long do you get to actually showcase? Because I think we had
oh,
somebody else on. It's like, was it 20 minutes, 30 minutes?
yeah, so the local days are not that long. We had meetings to begin with. Just the meetings were like, it was like a quick install, and then it was like, all right, now, like, from what you learned in that install, you got to take a quiz, just to see how fast you retain information and, all that. So
Yeah.
yeah, we do the meetings, and then we went out on the field, did some drills. But the local days were mainly like to see like, okay, how good a shape are you in? You know what I mean? Like they like it was quick, but it was like everything was back to back, super fast paced, nonstop, just trying to see, who's in shape,
Yeah.
who's a pro, you know what I mean? So yeah, but I was always in great shape. Like I always make it a point to, just stay in great shape year round. So those were nothing to
Yeah,
me.
there's
So
not really an off season, even like in college, I'd imagine. Off season, quote unquote, maybe your training, regimen is a little different, but you can't allow yourself. I'm like, you know what? For the next 2 months, I'm just gonna do tacos and beers.
nah, definitely
Okay,
can't do that.
okay,
Yeah, it's like I will say like after the NFL season, because it's a long season. Obviously you're not going to be training hard rigorously, like after the
yeah.
season, but obviously you want to rest the body a little bit, probably just do more like physical therapy, like if you need anything, and then just mobility and things like that, just more so just getting your body back healthy and recovering and stuff. But yeah, it's no off season. I mean, you're always doing something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now, when you did the local days growing up near Detroit, were you secretly saying to yourself, "Are you a Lions fan? So are you pulling for the Lions to want you, or did you grow up another fan?"
Nah, yeah, I always grew up a Lions fan. Yeah, I was a Lions fan, and going in there, it was like a dream, just being in the facility and everything. It was like the possibility of me being home and stuff would be amazing. But ultimately, I was just like I'm gonna end up wherever God wants me to be. So
Right.
I was definitely excited. Took a couple pictures on the side
With
without
Dan
people.
Campbell, did you take a
Yeah, I
picture
got
with
to
him?
shake. I got to shake his hand. No, I didn't take a picture with him, but
Okay.
yeah, I got to shake his hand and everything, and that was pretty cool. But yeah, I was excited when I was in the building, and that was definitely a good experience. But
Awesome.
yeah, so fast forward to the draft. I remember like that day, the week prior, I had talked to a bunch of teams, like over the phone, a couple position coaches, and they were just telling me, they uh they didn't know how the draft was gonna go, but they would love to, for me to, work with them and be on their team and stuff. But yeah, I didn't know how the draft was gonna go going in. I knew that, the chances of me getting drafted were, really, really low, just because I hadn't finished my senior year. I didn't go to the combine. I didn't take any like 30 visits
So
to
you
any.
went in with that expectation that, hey, based on, again, going back to the injury, not having additional tape in your senior year, and not be invited to combine and all that stuff, that it might not, even on day 3, you might not get a call.
Yeah, I was just like I knew I was gonna get an opportunity. I knew I
Yeah,
was gonna, even if I didn't get drafted, I knew I was gonna get an opportunity regardless. But I didn't go in with high hopes of like, oh yeah, I'm getting
yeah.
drafted, like telling people and stuff. I was just like, I'm just whatever happens, happens. I'm gonna just embrace it. You know what I mean? So that day it was really stressful because it was just like it was an all day thing. Like me and my parents were just sitting there watching the draft, and I was just texting my agent, just hearing from him, and he was like, we got good stuff like cooking up for you and stuff. Just stay patient and all that, like with decision everything, and ultimately it came down to two teams in terms of signing with like free agent wise priority. So it was between Washington and the Chargers, and me and my agent, we felt like Washington was giving me, the best deal money wise and everything. And yeah, it just seemed like the best fit. So, I chose to, sign with Washington and, just be a priority undrafted free agent there. And, going into that was a great experience just because Washington had a lot of vets last
Bobby
year.
Wagner, right? You got to work with
Yeah.
him?
Yeah. Bobby Wagner, Frankie Luvu, and then, Von Miller was in there, at the end, but, just being around a lot of vets and stuff and, guys that have been in the league for a long time and
Yeah.
just seeing why they've, been in the league for so long. Like that was like a great experience, just to, learn, from the habits that they've, created and that they do and, how they go about their business and, being a pro. And, they were really helpful too. Like like anything that you ask them in terms of like, how they do certain things, they would tell you and they would, give you the advice. So, just being able to learn from them was, a blessing and an honor. And, in Washington, I don't regret, that experience because, ultimately I did end up getting cut after preseason, but like I learned a lot. Like I learned a lot from the vets. I got great coaching and I ultimately, became a better football player, while I was there.
So
And
Yeah.
hearing from the vets, we've talked to a number of guys and, obviously the longer you're in the league, the more money you're making. So you're able to do a lot more stuff and invest in yourself. You're still young, obviously, and new. So how are you picking and choosing like, okay, this I could do on my own and this, yeah, I'm going to spend the money here and hire this person or buy this or whatever it is. How do you make that decision?
yeah, so I developed my priorities and what I value, like really quick. Just I realized like okay, so right now I'm trying to make it. Like I'm trying to make a name for myself. I'm trying to carve out a role. I'm trying to make the roster, make the team, and I have to do everything in my power to make sure that I give myself the best chance to do that. So number one, I prioritize like anything that helps me athletically and performance wise, whether it's, nutrition, training, recovery, like those are like number one priority. Like if I have to spend money on training and stuff, like no question, I'm, spending that money. If I have to spend money on, buying like recovery tools, like normal techniques and stuff like that, I'm buying it. There's no question about it. It helps me with my recovery and all that. So yeah, and then like food, obviously, like that's gonna help me in terms of keeping the inflammation down and everything, just making sure that I'm fueled properly. So like anything that helps me football wise, that's a priority. Everything else is like that's where it's like, okay, does this make sense? Does this add value to me, or is this kind of just a want? You know what I mean? Not necessarily a need. So also like talking with my financial advisor, I also, got invested into the stock market as well. Just, building up my Roth IRA, my, brokerage account and stuff like that,
Yep.
high yield savings and things like that. So like just making sure that, with every check that I get, I also, take a certain percentage of it and, put it in those buckets.
Oh, so
But
you guys set that up already, from the get-go.
yeah, offer.
Curious from my point of view, because obviously that's my field, but how did you get introduced? How did you originally meet your wealth advisor?
Yeah, my agent actually connected
Got it.
us. We when I was in Florida, that's where they're based out of. So
Yep.
they took us out to dinner, him and his partner, and we got to have great conversations, build up relationship, and
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, that's how we got connected and started and everything. And we kind of regularly like once a month or once a week, just going over how things are going, how budgeting and everything and things of that nature. So yeah, having a financial advisor has been really helpful in terms of just helping me with, my financial literacy and everything. And, also just taking the time out on my own as well, just,
Yeah.
Reading books and learning about financial literacy.
I'm
No, I
But
think it's great.
I'm curious, once you signed, how many people came out of the woodworks asking for money from you and trying
um,
to mooch, and how difficult or not difficult has that been for you to be able to say, hey, sorry, you know what? I don't have access to this. I can't touch it, but whatever it is.
Yeah, so to begin, like starting out, my parents, they already knew, like, obviously I wasn't signed to a big contract, like to start out with and everything. And they knew, they're like, your money is your money. Like, we're not asking you for anything. Like, build your money up, build your net worth and everything. Like, you know what I mean? So, and they're like, we'll deal with, anybody else in the family that, tries to, come along and
They're
they're
gonna
like,
enforce the law. Okay.
yeah, they're like, let us know if anybody, tries to reach out. But
What,
nah, I mean, a
what
lot
was
of
your major in college, though?
entrepreneurship.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah,
Makes sense.
yeah. So yeah, I have a business like my mindset. So that's helped me a lot too. But yeah, no, not I didn't really have a lot of people, asking me for money and everything. More so just people, making sure that they're gonna get their tickets, you know what I mean, when the season comes around, just texting me and, trying to start that conversation and everything. But
Well, since we're on that topic, Cam, are you guys playing the Jets this year or no? I think you are. Still,
uh
we'll be hearing from you. I'm kidding.
yeah.
No, but you only play real football teams that could actually win a game against
I never
you all.
brought this up, Cam. I have my own stand-up comedian that I bring on the show. It's the Bierk. So there we go. But no, that's good that you set up that way. In
Yeah.
terms of like, just you kind of mentioned it from a college perspective, but also now in the NFL. Can you talk a little bit about the locker room, the camaraderie? That's the first part, and then the second part, where Eric and I are both very curious about your style of play in terms of like, especially the verbal aspect of it. So, but locker room camaraderie, how is
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, so honestly, the best part about, college football was, like, looking back on it, was the locker room and just, the bus rides and, being in the team hotel, just with everybody. Like, that was really like, the best times in terms of, just memories and experiences because, like, yeah, like the games were cool and everything. But I remember vividly, the locker room and just, how good of a time that was and just,
Yeah.
being with the guys in there,
I
in
mean,
college.
and you build a relationship with not just the defensive players. I'm assuming it crosses all different phases of football. I'm assuming, or how is
Yeah,
it?
nah, we actually in college, they to try and like make us closer, like as a team, they, instead of, having every like unit, like we call them units, where it was like, position groups in each unit, they mixed it up and had people change lockers and
Oh, okay.
It's
they
like
had us
Right
like,
next to
remembering the
somebody else.
Titans.
yeah, just next to, other people for the summertime. So we could like, get to, build relationships with other guys on the team, get closer with them and stuff. And
So
so
your
that was
best
pretty
buddy is
cool
the
too.
punter, then. Okay.
Yeah, nah,
I mean,
it
no
was,
disrespect, punters. That's
But
important.
yeah,
but that's from remembering the Titans.
yeah, right. Yeah.
They did
So
do that, didn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. All right.
Yeah.
yeah, that was a good experience. Just talking to people that I normally didn't talk to or never really interacted with. So that was cool. In the NFL, the locker room, I mean, it's kind of, the same thing as college in terms of, just being with the guys and stuff and all that. But I would say like, my like closest friends are more so like, from college and stuff, just because, I was with those guys
Uh-huh.
for, yeah, I was with those guys for, 4 or 5 years and stuff. And just, the relationships that I built with them. In the NFL, it's a little different because, like guys
Business.
come and go, like it's,
Yeah.
new people in, every other week and stuff and people leaving and stuff and all that. So like you still build relationships and stuff, but it's not like college and stuff. So
Right.
yeah, but yeah, so going back though with my experience in Washington, yeah, so that like, yeah, just learning how to be a pro from, the veterans and stuff was, really helpful and, just helped make me a better football player. And, ultimately, when we had our preseason games and stuff and all that, there was a lot of things that were out of my control, especially in terms of like playing time and all that. So, my mindset during those games were just, control what I can control. Just when I get out there, cut it loose. Like, I'm interviewing for all 32 teams, not just this team. So, that mindset helped me a lot. And, when I got in there, I made some plays and, put out some good film. And, when I did get cut from Washington, I was like a little hurt by it, but also like, after talking to, people, and it's the nature of the league, like, getting cut, like everybody's been cut, but they're like, you can play in this league. Like you have the ability, you have the, you can do it and stuff. And I was like, okay, so that, gave me a lot of, confidence and just belief of, if I keep going, like, and, I keep training and, somebody's gonna, pick me up and somebody's gonna take a chance and give me opportunity. So,
It always surprised me. I mean, it's funny you say that, and not funny, but I mean, it seems like you're dealing well with adversity. But in terms of like, getting caught, right? It's like in our professional like fields as well. It's like, oh, don't take it personal. Don't take it personal. I'm like, how couldn't you? It literally impacts
yeah,
you personally as directly as it gets. You know what I mean?
right,
If you
right.
get fired somewhere or if you get caught, I'm like, I know it's a business decision and it's business for me, but it's also personal. I don't, I appreciate you saying that because,
Yeah.
it would tick me off, but
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's where I grew though. That's where it helped me grow as a young man
right.
because it made me realize like, hey, like that's life. Like what I mean, like unfortunate
Happens
things
everywhere. Yeah.
happen. Yeah, unfortunate things happen sometimes, and it's about how you respond. So when I came home, my parents they were like, we're gonna help you, support you any way we can. Any help that you need with anything, like just let us know how we can help, and like just keep going, just keep pursuing your dream, and it's gonna work out for you. So while I was home during that season last year, I had got workouts from the Browns, the 49ers, and the Chiefs. And, I didn't get signed right away after all those workouts. Like, it was
Hmm.
just kind of like, they brought me in, quick workout, see if I was in shape, see how good I look, taking my measurements and everything. And then they're like, okay, like, you look really good. You look like been staying in good shape and working hard and stuff, but we're not gonna, make a move right now and stuff. So, it was just a matter of just getting told no and, not letting that deter me and not letting that, get me off my path and just sticking to it. You know what I mean? So, ultimately, when I worked out with the Chiefs, it was like in December and, they told me they were like, we're just going to wait a little bit just to, see if some spots open up on practice squad and we'll sign you and stuff. So, that gave me a lot of hope and stuff. And it was like 2 days after Christmas, my agent called me and he was like, hey, like, the Chiefs want to sign you to the practice squad for week 18 and stuff. And I was like, I was excited. I was like, let's go, let's do it. Like, you know what I mean? So that was exciting. And kind of just, it reassured me like of all the work that I've been doing, like during the season that, like nobody really knew what I was doing. Like I was consistently, working out 5 days a week. I was training like, I was going to get that call, that opportunity, like, whatever. So, I stuck to my training. I stuck to taking care of my body. I stuck to my nutrition. Like I stayed focused. Like I just kept, doing everything that was required of me to, be a pro and stuff and make sure I was in great shape and everything. So yeah, when I got that call, it was just like, reassuring of everything that I did and, just me, putting my faith and trust in God and surrendering the outcome and just valuing the process. And, when I got to Kansas City, it was like, I was just so grateful because it was like, man, like it's been so while, it's been so long. And like, just being at home, like I don't want to go back home. Like I want to be, in an NFL locker room. Like this is where I need to be. This is where I, need to,
Yeah.
like just, yeah. So, I was very grateful for that. And after that week, the Chiefs didn't make the playoffs. So they signed me to a futures deal where, they bring me back for the offseason and I have another, opportunity to, compete for, a role on the team and everything. So yeah, so that was amazing. And, off season, I was just like, I got my foot back in and, now I was trying to just, show why I belong and why I'm here to stay. So, that's how the off season's been going. But yeah, no,
Awesome.
I'm very grateful for, my path and, how everything, panned out. Cause ultimately, like it just made me, a better person along the way. It, helped me grow a lot, as a young man. And, it just, it just made me so grateful for, the game and just, never taking a day for granted. You know what I mean? So, every day that I get an opportunity to, go practice or go be in the building, like I just make sure that, give it everything that I have. And, I try to get 1% better every single day. So yeah, that's my story.
And you're sticking with
Yeah. So
Yeah, sure.
again, you overcome adversity. You're in great shape. You got the green dot. You're the middle linebacker. What
Yeah.
is your type of play? Like again, you're out there in the defense, right? You're seeing quarterback, yelling out his stuff. Do
Yeah.
you chirp at them? Do you tell them something? Do you let them know you're
So
there? How to get them? What are you doing?
so I'm a silent killer. Like, you know what I mean? Like
Or just
when I
staring
get
it
out there,
down
it's like,
through the helmet?
yeah, when I get out there, it's like, I obviously I feel like I have that look of just like who is that guy? You know what I mean? Like so I go out there and I work. Like, I obviously I communicate, I make calls and stuff. Like I'm very I'm a lot more vocal, a lot louder, when I'm on the field. It's sometimes, you just gotta flip the switch. And that's what I do when I get out there. So
Yeah.
I'm loud, I'm vocal and stuff. And it's just like my mindset is just like, like I'm trying to impose my will on, these other guys and, the offense. I'm trying to, attack. I'm trying to play fast. Like I'm playing fast. I'm playing violent and physical. Like it's just like I'm imposing my will. Like I'm every time like I make a tackle, like I'm making sure like I'm finishing like and putting them on their
You go
backs.
through them?
Yeah, I'm just going through people and stuff, and it's just like that's just I flip like I'm a. It's like those superheroes where like
Yeah.
man like he's Bruce Wayne,
Yeah.
without
I
the
use
costume that he
Batman.
puts on, and then he's Batman. It's like,
no,
that ultimate ego.
you're like Muhammad Ali. What does he say?
Yeah.
Float like a
Feel
butterfly,
like butterfly,
sting
sting
like
like
a
a bee.
bee.
Yeah. 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 So it's like I just flip the switch, like, and I love it. You know what I mean? Like when I get out there, it's just like I feel free. I feel like I can just run around and just, like hit people and stuff and not get in trouble for it and all that. So like
I
it's
mean,
I really learned to like just love the linebacker position and embrace it and just, it just became a part of me and who I am.
What what's
it's
the
a great
hardest
outlet.
hit you've given?
The hardest hit that I've given. I think so. I want to say there's two memories I had in college. So we were playing Syracuse, and a guy was coming on a pass play, like coming from the side, and I was like just standing there waiting for him to come.
Over the middle?
And as soon as the ball was thrown, I just flew and like accelerated. And as soon as he caught it, it was like Bob, like, and he was like, after that, he was down on the ground, like just laying there, like, and I was just like, I looked and I was just like, put him to sleep, like, you know what I mean? Just so that was a
Stay
good one.
confused.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then we played Rutgers my junior year, and so this running back was coming like to lead block on me. It was like a jet sweep, and
Yeah.
like it was a play that like I had seen on film and stuff, and like I knew once they jetted, I just read the running back, and as soon as he goes this way, like I got to go and attack him and stuff. So he was coming to block me, and I was like, I'm going through this guy. So I just accelerated and just blew him up, made the tackle and stuff, and like he was like shaking up after that and all that. But that was another big hit that I laid on somebody. But yeah, those are probably like some of my biggest hits and memories and stuff. But I
Nice.
love it though. Yeah.
Yeah, just enjoy it as long as you can because I tell you from an office environment, tackling people is not, it's a little fraud upon here. So,
Oh yeah.
whatever you're going to do
Yeah. No.
after your playing career, a long time from now, enjoy it as long as you can. You know how many times I wanted to tackle Eric and it's just like, I can't, so, but yeah, man, no, this has
I'm too
been,
big for you, buddy.
I know you're such a monster. No, this has been super insightful, but Eric, do you, kind of like want to go through our walk-off 10? Have a few
I
more questions
do.
for Cam?
I do. All right. So I'm going to ask you 10 questions, either true, false, or one word answers. All right. True or false? Offensive linemen are secretly the funniest people on the team.
They're funny. I would say it's like half and half. It's like
All
half and
right.
half. They're not. I don't think they're the funniest, but it's half
All
and
right.
half. Yeah.
True or false? You've ever checked a mirror immediately after a game to see how bad the damage was?
True. True.
One word, barbecue or burgers?
Barbecue.
All right. Well, especially in KC, right?
Yeah, right.
True or false? Linemen deserve their own fantasy football scoring system.
True. O-line needs some love. They don't get enough love for what they do.
I
Right.
actually on my platform, just so you know, Eric, we do have individual defensive players. So
All right. One word, loudest teammate.
Loudest teammate. Honestly, I'm still learning. I'm still new, like being around these guys. So I'm gonna have to get back to you on that one.
All right. True or false? You know exactly how many pancakes you've had in your
Ooh, like me eating pancake?
you eating them.
he's talking about eating. He's not talking about getting pancake.
Yeah.
We're back to nutrition, Cam.
Right.
You already failed with barbecue instead of burgers. Now see what you come up with here.
Shoot, I really don't know. I really don't even know. Yeah.
So a ton.
All right.
Got it.
If linemen raced wide receivers in full pads, you'd win at least one race.
Oh yeah, true.
Okay. Hardest position to block.
Hardest position to block. I mean, I don't really block anybody. I mean,
I guess you could say to tackle as well.
Probably running backs, but I mean, yeah, probably running backs.
Okay. Most underrated NFL skill.
Most underrated NFL skill. Ooh, I would say change the direction. Like people always like talk about like 40 times and like how fast people are, but like you could be straight line fast, but if you can't like change direction and stuff, like, that doesn't like you probably won't be a great football player. Like you gotta really be able to change direction and stuff.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. It was great talking to you, and I wish you the best this season. Be rooting.
I got one more
for you.
though, Eric. I have one more. It's just in terms of like you getting ready and prep for the game. What tunes are you listening to? How do you get ready? How do you get locked in?
Nah, I definitely gotta like listen to some hype music. Listen
So
to like
Backstreet Boys, got it.
something like that. Definitely gotta listen to some hype, amped up music, just to get me in the right mindset. You know what I mean? Yeah. So.
Well, cool. Yeah, just to what Eric said. Nothing but the best. This was fun. Appreciate you making the time, man. I know again, you guys are busy, so yeah, thank you.
Nah, thank you guys. It's been a pleasure to talk to you guys and share my story.
Thank you.
Yeah.